Hey, James, our guest is Congressman Jason Crow of Colorado, who was an Army Ranger, 82nd Airborne, 3 tours in Iraq and Afghanistan, and a member now of the House Armed Services and Intelligence Committee. Congressman, first of all, thank you so much for being with us. Um,
Thank
you
you.
you have called for Defense Secretary Hegseth's resignations months ago, well before he assailed you and 5 colleagues for saying the military personnel have a right to disobey an illegal order, and their need is to follow the Constitution. And also before his involvement in whatever it was in the killing of 2 men floating off a Venezuelan boat. Hegseth is trying to pin the blame on that on Admiral Bradley. Now, I know you want to see what comes out in a hearing, but Hegseth says he watched the bombing to begin with. He issued the initial order. Rand Paul, on the other side of the Congress, other side of the aisle, Republican from Kentucky, said it's clear Hegseth is either lying or he's incompetent. Which do you think it is?
Well, why do we have to choose? I mean, he can be
Good
an
point.
incompetent liar, right? Which I think he is. I mean, the man never should have been confirmed in the first instance. He's woefully unqualified. He has no integrity. He's out of step with the morality and the values of this nation and the force that he now leads. In one of my darker moments this year, I read his book, which is a really tough read, let me tell you. But the things he said about women, the things he said about warfare is just appalling stuff. So I've known this man for who he is for a very long time, and none of this is surprising to me because you put somebody with his mindset, his mentality, and his lack of experience and lack of integrity in a position like this, and bad things happen.
Congressman, were the killing of those 2 men floating in the water off that boat was that a war crime?
It appears so to me. I mean, I don't see any. As a former combat leader and as somebody that's been in combat situations and had to make calls, I do not see any justified reason for shooting at unarmed individuals who have been stranded after an initial strike. I just simply do not see any justification, legal or otherwise, or operational, for a decision to shoot at folks like that.
Hegseth is a danger if he's not replaced. Now, you know the realities of this president. Who would you like to see in that post?
I'm not gonna name names
You're
because
afraid you'll jinx
if
him?
if I if I give someone's name who I like, that's a guaranteed way to tank their tank their viability as a candidate for that position. So, it's one of these standing things in politics where I always tell some of my friends on the other side of the aisle, like, I like you enough that if you ever want me to, I will say bad things about you to help you in one of your
Well,
races.
I was going to find someone that you don't want in that post and say good things about him. You really could deliver.
Exactly. That I'll do.
The
But no, I'm
Pentagon,
not gonna tank someone's viability here by saying good things about them.
Hegseth has all the problems you outline, and the Pentagon seems to be a mess. It's just absolutely
Yeah.
in chaos. Is that affecting General Kane, the head of the Joint Chiefs?
It's weird. You hear nothing about General Kane. Like I haven't seen him in probably 6 months. He hasn't showed up on the Hill. From my perspective, he seems to have been sidelined, and or he's just keeping his head low. The interactions I did have with him earlier in the year were positive. Actually, I thought he had a good demeanor, a good engagement with the Hill, but he's been largely absent, which again is really telling, right? That you have Pete Hegseth, who, is not actually he's not doing the duties of Secretary of Defense. He was hired to play a Secretary of Defense on TV, which is what he largely appears to be doing. And then the real folks, who are trying to keep the ship afloat, so to speak, are just doing the work.
Right. Both from your past, a decorated war veteran, and also your current committee positions, you stay in touch with a number of service members. Can you give us a sense of what the state of morale is today?
Yeah, morale is very low. I do. I keep in touch with my former colleagues from the military, with senior ranking folks, retired and otherwise, and people are very worried. People are worried about the insertion of politics into the force. They're worried about the fact that there's been an environment created where instead of choosing the best woman or man for the job, people are campaigning now for these high level positions, and they're seeking them, and there are campaigns for high level appointments, which is not the way it's supposed to work in the military, and it creates a politics and a dynamic that's very disturbing for our military. So morale is low. I'm less worried right now for the senior ranks, right? These are people that have been in the military for 20, 30, 40 years in some instances, whose leadership style, whose integrity, whose experience is already established,
Right.
right?
Right.
They understand and they can largely manage this. What I'm most worried about is the message and the culture that's being developed for the lower ranks right now, who are coming into the military, whose leadership style and philosophy is being shaped by this environment, and because that's going to have a more generational impact on our force.
James Carville.
So, Congressman, let's talk about your current day job, and that is you're heading up the Democratic Congressional Committee in
Right.
the House. How many Republican House seats do you think we're going to contest in this cycle?
Well, based on what we saw a couple of weeks ago in the elections and what we saw last night in Tennessee, a lot, right? I'm a firm believer in going deep, fighting everywhere, contesting every race. And if what we've seen in the last month, if we extrapolate that out, we can go very, very deep into Trump territory.
So, I'm a big believer in recruiting. Give us how are we shaping up in terms of getting the kind of candidates that we can get that can actually win elections in here? Give us a little briefing on where we stand in that area.
Yeah, you and I we see eye to eye in this. Obviously, it's the single biggest factor in a race is the quality of the candidate, right? Because I always
Right.
say, like, when you're talking about flipping a red seat, where voters voted for Trump or a Republican that supports Trump, they largely aren't gonna vote, for Democrats just because they're a Democrat. They're gonna vote because someone is independent, because they like them, because they have a strong biography and they run a local campaign. So good news is our recruiting is going very well, and we are finding that next generation of leaders who are not going to just flip races but can help create a movement. Because I'll be honest with you, I'm less interested in just stumbling from cycle to cycle anymore, and always having to battle every single election cycle. I want to create a larger movement that's going to once and for all end the tyranny of Donald Trump over our politics.
And another thing is that I really look at, and I'm sure you do too, are we seeing an unusual number of Republican retirements from the House? And people like, yeah, I've want to spend more time with my family kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
because a lot of these Republicans, what they're saying publicly, well, privately for the most part, some are publicly saying it once they announce their retirement, is the White House treats them like crap. That the functions of Congress have been gutted. They've lost their power. They've lost their independence. To which I say, this is what we've been saying for years, right? Like literally, this is what we've been saying. That this administration doesn't care about checks and balances, doesn't care about our constitutional system, doesn't care about Congress. Stand up, have some courage. Don't allow them to do it. And they didn't. And now they're being like, "Oh wow, you're right. Actually, we should have a couple of years ago stood up to this and asserted ourselves, and we didn't. And now look at the mess that we're in." And now they're leaving. So listen, there are some people who are friends of mine who are leaving, who are gone. I'll miss them personally, but there's a larger mission at play here, and folks have got to go.
so you're a person of the West, obviously. You represent Colorado. You know something about the West. I'm trying to figure out what's a better description for our current defense secretary, a tin horn or a dime store cowboy? It's probably somewhere between the two.
It's all probably too kind.
You know what else we would say in the West about someone like Pete Hegseth is that he is all hat and no cattle.
There you go. So they had this thing, of course. Hegseth says he doesn't know anything about it. Trump doesn't know anything about it. Let's blame the admiral. What kind of message? I know that was drilled into your head. You're training. You accept responsibility. That's the main thing that you got to do. What does it say to a corporal when he sees the 1-2 people in the chain of command sloughing off responsibility and trying to blame somebody else, and he's told that he or she is responsible for keeping your weapon clean?
Yeah, it's absolutely corrosive to the entire environment, right? When you step into the the boots and you go to basic training and you go to officer training, what you learn immediately, at least in the Army, is that leadership by example. That's the phrase. You lead by example is the single most powerful thing. It doesn't matter what you say. It matters what you do when you set the example. And when you're a paratrooper, what it means is you actually jump out of the plane first. There's a tradition in the paratroopers that when you're in that plane, the senior person jumps first, and then your paratroopers follow you. When you're out in the field and you get hot chow, your soldiers eat first, and then if there's anything left over, then you eat last. That's what it's supposed to look like. With this administration, everything is flipped on its head.
Yeah.
They're pushing everybody else out the plane, and not even jumping. They're chowing down, eating all the food, leaving nothing for anybody else. The entire thing has been turned on its head.
Albert, thank you. Great answer.
Let me just follow up on one thing James asked about recruitment. You were part of that 2018 class with great candidates with national security credentials. You, Abigail Spanberger, Mikey Sherrill, just elected governors, Alyssa Slotkin, now a senator, Chrissy Houlihan. Are you replicating any of that this year?
Yeah, I mean that's what we're looking for, because this is not rocket science. Like, it turns out Americans want people who have done things and accomplished things outside of politics, who have a proven track record of doing non-political things for the country and community, and who can build coalitions. Who would have guessed? They want people who can do things, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's just not. This is not hard, right? And the political system is broken. Everybody knows it. I know it. You know it. They know it. And they know that the answer to fixing that broken system is not to get more politicians and more people that have spent their lives doing politics into that system. They want something different. So that worked in 18. It's gonna work again. It's frankly the future of this country. It's the future of politics, and that's why when we are looking at these folks, you want to find people who have built businesses, who have served the country in uniform, who are raising young kids in America, who understand how excruciatingly difficult it is to raise a family in this country. That's who people can relate to.
Congressman, let me turn to Venezuela. They are making threats every day that they may actually attack Venezuela, apart from what they're doing to those boats. And they say it's all about curtailing drugs. But of course, Trump just pardoned the biggest drug trafficker of all times, the former Honduran president, who
he pardoned a guy named Cocaine Juan is his name.
Right. I mean, he was the biggest of all. Remember that movie Wag the Dog, where a president starts a war in order to hide, in order to distract from other problems? Is this a Wag the Dog situation?
I don't know if it's. I mean, it might be. I mean, first of all, this president just doesn't see a problem that he doesn't think he can bomb his way out of. Right.
Mm-hmm.
He's been one of the most interventionist presidents that I've seen in decades, and that's saying something in this environment. Has Donald Trump learned nothing in the last 25 years? Like, America needs to get out of the regime change and nation building business. Full stop. Right. We spent $3 trillion, 7,000 American lives, over 3 million combat deployments, lost years of credibility. There's nothing in my life that would show that we are good at regime change and nation building. Right. And the rhetoric of this president indicates that he has not learned that lesson. And it just needs to stop. That's not to say that we shouldn't put pressure on Venezuela and Maduro, because he's a terrible dictator. But the idea that we're going to go in and fix this like the way we thought we would in Iraq and the way that we thought we would in Afghanistan would be the height of folly.
Yeah, if you break it, you own it. Let me ask you about Ukraine. Do you have confidence in the American negotiators, Steve Witkoff and the president's son-in-law, Jared Kushner?
No, I don't, because I don't think they understand what we're dealing with here. I don't think they understand Vladimir Putin, which is remarkable because we actually know a lot about Vladimir Putin, right? We know that he only respects pressure and power. Like he doesn't care what anybody says. He only does what he is forced to do. And Vladimir Putin believes that Russia's greatest strength historically, like he's a Russian historian, he believes in the Russian Empire. He believes that Russia's greatest strength is that they can absorb more pain than anybody else. They can just outlast everybody else because they can absorb more pain. That's his thesis, and he thinks he can outlast the West, right? So the idea that you can convince him of that otherwise without maximum pressure is just ridiculous and not based in any fact. So the rhetoric of Donald Trump, the actions of Donald Trump, how he's undermined our own alliances, he's undermined our own pressure, he's undermined all of the tools that we would use to actually achieve asserting pressure on Putin and force him to the bargaining table. That gives me no reason to believe that this administration is serious about helping Ukraine either win or settle this in unfavorable terms.
Well, let me ask you one final question before I turn it over to James. Put on your Intelligence Committee hat. How would you rate the likelihood, probability, or possibility of China trying to take over Taiwan in the next couple of years?
Yeah, I think that risk is increasing, right? What we also know about Xi in China is that he believes that taking Taiwan is essential to his legacy, that he does not achieve his legacy unless he quote unquote reunifies China, is what the Chinese call it, reunification, and that he wants to achieve that before his leadership tenure is over. So what that means, and he will never stop trying to do that. Kind of like Vladimir Putin will never stop trying to reestablish the Russian Empire, historic Russian Empire as he sees it. And he actually literally has held up a map of what that looks like, and it includes large chunks of NATO. She also will never stop trying to achieve that legacy as he sees it. So what it means is we always have to make sure that the costs to them outweigh the benefits, and that every single morning she wakes up and says, "Not today, not this morning. It's too costly. I can't achieve it." And that's an endeavor we have to take seriously.
Congressman,
Yeah.
let me ask you before we go. There are multiple charges of corruption in this administration, ranging from crypto to pardons, other things. Are they serious? It seems nothing can be done about it. Give me your sense of this.
Yeah, this is undoubtedly the most corrupt presidential administration in the history of America. Within 11 short months, they have created a pay-to-play corrupt system based on graft, the likes of which we have never seen in America. And then on top of it, you look at the suffering of the American people, how healthcare premiums are doubling, tripling, quadrupling, how costs are skyrocketing, people can't afford homes. And what is this president doing other than falling asleep in cabinet meetings? He is building a $300 million ballroom. He's refurbishing the golf course at Andrews Air Force Base. He's buying $200 million of private planes for Kristi Noem. This man is remarkably out of touch with the working class of the United States. And I'm a Democrat because I don't believe government should solve my problems, and I don't think I don't want a handout. I don't want government intervention in all elements of my life. But what I do think fundamentally, the role of government is to try to achieve a level playing field so that people can compete, they can win, they can achieve the American dream. If people can do that and become billionaires, good on them, right? But working class folks know that the game is rigged right now, and it's more rigged than it's ever been, thanks to this president. And combating that corruption is got to be one of our top priorities going forward.
Boy, Jason Crow, you have been a great guest, and all you out there, if you want to view politicians as stocks, take a look at Jason Crow from Colorado. You have been a great guest on a whole wide range of subjects. Best of luck to you.
Thanks for having me.